So there's gardening, there's homesteading, and then there's resilience. And they're actually all different things with different goals. And this year, I've decided I'm gardening specifically for resilience. And what I mean by that is, I want to grow storage crops that can feed my family and feed my animals without me ever having to run to the feed store again. And without me ever having to buy a seed again either, which really means not having to rely on the supply chain at all anymore. And I'll be honest with you, that is a tall order, especially when you're only working with half an acre like we are. But I want to share all the strategies we're using this year to pull this off, along with some next level seed saving and some pretty unique crop varieties I'm actually breeding myself to go along with our whole plan for resilience here on this small homestead. So, let's get started. The first part of this whole self-sufficient system is our chickens. We've got a flock of 10 hens that lay this beautiful, colorful mix of eggs every single day. And honestly, that protein is something I depend on every morning. It's my first source of protein for the day. Right now, we only keep hens for the eggs. We've had roosters before, but we really try to keep our chickens under the radar around here, and a rooster just draws way too much attention. And that's actually a big part of why I was so excited to add Muscovy ducks recently, because they're going to be another egg source, but more importantly, they're going to be a sustainable meat source for us. Right now, I've got them in that small duck food forest corner of the backyard, and I'm planning to expand it a bit, but for now, they've got their pond and tons of greens to eat and bugs to find, and I barely have to feed them anything. They're honestly so much more self-sufficient than the chickens are. Now let's get into the garden, and I've got multiple different garden areas, so I'll start with the one closest to the house, which is our raised bed garden. This is actually the garden I wrote my book about, the 400 square foot garden, where I showed how we grow food all year long with some strategic planning across all 12 of these raised beds. So I've got a back row of perennials going, strawberries and asparagus and Egyptian walking onions and sunchokes. And then the middle rows use the trellis for cucumbers and squash and tomatoes. The front row this year, I'm growing all onions, which is actually different from what I laid out in the book, but I really need onions as a staple crop for our family this year. And since they're right up front, close to the house, I can stay on top of the weeds easily, and they'll be ready to harvest next month. Now, right next to the raised beds, I've got this 20 by 50 foot area, and everything growing in here is part of a resilience breeding experiment. And this is the stuff I'm most excited about. So in here, I've interplanted 4 different varieties of sweet corn, some old-fashioned kinds, some Native American types, and some modern sweet corn. And the whole idea is to let them all cross and create a unique, resilient sweet corn that's my own, one that's adapted to thrive right here in my specific climate. And I've got to mention, I read 2 books recently that completely changed the way I think about the garden, and honestly are part of the reason I started all of these projects. And those books are The Resilient Gardener and Landrace Gardening. The whole goal with this approach is to create varieties that thrive no matter what challenges come at them, whether that's drought or pests or disease, because only the strongest plants are going to survive. And those are the ones I will save seed from. So every year it gets a little more adapted, a little more resilient, a little more mine. And then on the end of each row, I strategically planted 1 squash and 1 pumpkin. The squash is a blue Hubbard variety, and the pumpkin is an Atlantic giant. And my hope is to cross them into this giant blue pumpkin with a huge seed cavity that I could feed to my flock of chickens and ducks. And honestly, partly just for the novelty of it too. And I'm really excited to see how that one develops. This is really exciting. I'm about to attempt my first pumpkin squash cross. I have 2 different plants here. You probably can't tell the difference, but one is an Atlantic giant pumpkin and it's got this real long vine already, and its first female flower, pumpkin fruit is starting to form on the end of it, but it's not quite ready for a cross yet. And I've got the blue Hubbard next to it. What I'm going to attempt first is to take a male flower from the Atlantic Giant and fertilize a female flower on the blue Hubbard and see what develops, and I'm going to show you that right now. But the main cross that I'm hoping to get the best results for is to have the Atlantic Giant female pumpkin get fertilized by the blue Hubbard squash pollen, but those aren't quite ready yet, so I'm going to attempt it the other way first. Alright, so we're going to look in here, and we're going to see there is the male flower fully open, and you can tell it's male because there's no fruit beneath it. Okay, and then we'll go over right next to it is the blue Hubbard squash, and you can tell a female here has the fruit right behind the flower, and this is the one. This flower has not opened yet, so this is a perfect time to come in here and pollinate this flower with the Atlantic Giant pollen, and we'll see if this becomes a giant blue squash pumpkin hybrid. I don't know, but we're gonna find out. Flower. Okay. Pretty cool. Let's go do some pollinating.
The pollen?
I think that's the stigma on the inside. That's what accepts the pollen. Little clothesline clip. Oh, yeah, there you go. Awesome. Right next to that garden, I've got this small greenhouse. And in here, I'm growing 20 Amish paste tomatoes. And this is actually another breeding experiment because I'm working on crossing Black Krim into the Amish paste to try and develop a more complex tasting paste tomato. I'll definitely keep you posted on how that. I'm going to try something different trick. I'm using black sunglasses and this to vibrate and get some pollen out onto the... Oh yeah. Cool. It's not a ton, but there's definitely pollen on that. You want to find one that's just about to open, but it hasn't opened yet. This one right here is a really good candidate, I think. Cut the sepals. There you go. It's the first time I'm cross-pollinating tomatoes. You guys will see with me what exactly comes of this creation. Now on the other side here, we've got our main farm plot, which is about a 1/4 acre. This year I added new apple trees as a hedge along the far side of the plot. And I'm really excited about these because all 4 varieties bloom later in the season and they store really well, and they're all disease resistant, which are exactly the qualities I want if I'm growing fruit to store. These 4 apple trees are Liberty, Arkansas Black, Gold Rush, and Enterprise, and I cannot wait to harvest apples off these trees in the years to come. We've also got another row of apple and plum trees on this side, some Honeycrisp and Macintosh and Jonathan apple trees. And we planted 2 peach trees and a cherry tree along the other side of the farm plot too. So really every side of this plot is bordered by perennial fruit now. Of course this year every bit of it got ruined by that late frost, but hopefully the future years are going to be a lot more productive. In this area I've got another breeding project going, And this one's a Dent corn for the chickens and ducks. That's a mixture of a whole bunch of varieties, and I can't wait to see what that looks like at harvest. I've also got a number of blue Hubbard squash planted at the ends of rows, along with some watermelon and some honey nut squash. Then we've got several rows of potatoes, which are a huge staple storage crop for us, and those will be ready in about a month. We planted green beans a few weeks ago, and they're coming along really well, and we've got a row of carrots that'll be ready in a few weeks too. And then on the far end of this plot is where I'm growing even more food for the animals. And this whole section is full of sunflowers and amaranth, plus pole beans that'll climb right up those stalks. I actually plant pole beans underneath the dent corn too, because that way I'm using every bit of this small land base and growing the most protein I possibly can out of it. Because the sunflowers are a great protein source, and so is the amaranth. Last year the birds actually beat me to the sunflowers and ate them all before I could harvest. So this year I bought some mesh covering to protect the seed heads once they establish, so I can actually store them for feed this time. This whole area is going to produce so much. It's going to be absolutely beautiful back here. So that's how we're growing for resilience this year. And it's not just about growing storage crops, it's about growing feed for our animals too. And it's about producing resilient crop varieties that don't even exist yet. Varieties that are adapting to this exact piece of land a little more every single season. This is honestly the stuff that gets me up every morning. This is what I live for, and I'm really hoping to share some unique new varieties with you at the end of the season from the breeding experiments that work out. There's so much more coming from this half acre, and I can't wait to share it all with you. Because there is so much you can do with a small piece of land, and I really hope I showed at least some of you that you don't need multiple acres to be more resilient in 2026.